motivation, maybe even agility, but I don't think it's part of this word cloud here. Those are the topics that I believe to be key factors for success, for a successful digital transformation. What is so complicated about that this poor person that is supposed to drive digital transformation, to make a change, to change the company, the person who is supposed to increase profit, reduce costs, increase customer satisfaction, map the customer journey, establish an international network. The person basically looks like this, as you can see here on the screen, the person by Edward Monk. And I think you all know this person. You've met them in your day-to-day life. I work with them on a daily basis, and quite often I am the person just standing there wanting to scream. And why is this the case? Well, this is because we live in the VUCA world. The world is volatile, it is uncertain, it is complex, and it is diverse or ambiguous. And this creates enormous pressure for those who are supposed to deliver innovation, be creative, drive topics that are supposed to change something, to even change the world, because this is what we demand of them a lot of times. And a person, as we can see it here on the screen, is for sure not able to do that. They will not be able to change the world. They are scared, they are restricted, they are impaired, they cannot express themselves, they cannot take risks. This doesn't work. So I want to juxtapose the VUCA concept with a concept that I call WACC, W-A-C-C. And the question is, what does a person need to do in order to be successful in today's world? Well, they need to be willing, they need to be able, they need to have the motivation to change something, to go beyond themselves, to take risks. They also need to be able to change something. If they're only willing, nothing will happen. They need the tools and framework for actually making a difference. And of course, capability is also important. They need the capabilities in terms of expertise, training, not only education in terms of school and university, but also vocational training, further training. They need to be equipped with the right tools so that they have the capability to change something. We heard so much about compliance today, and I can be very willing to be compliant. I might also have the capability to be compliant. However, if I lack the tools, I will not be able to implement compliance. And the fourth aspect is capacity. I need time. I just need time. I need the opportunity to work on such topics. And if I look at businesses today, and Jana already mentioned it in her intro, I'm a consultant, and throughout recent years I have been working as a board member as well, pushing through these topics, working on these issues, and the biggest problem is time. In this VUCA world, we have less and less time. We have to do so many things in parallel. And if we do not manage to establish a WACC environment for our employees, if we do not work on establishing this kind of environment, then we will go down in the VUCA world. And then the digital transformation will not happen, not in our departments, business units, companies, let alone society. It will simply die along the way. So how can we establish WACC? How can we create a WACC environment, and what does it actually mean? What are the mechanisms that are available today to establish WACC? And there is one topic which I consider to be very important. The mechanisms that we've used so far for management and leadership, those are two very different concepts, they do not work anymore in our VUCA world. Traditional management, traditional leadership, this has changed. They are different now. And they cannot prevail against VUCA. So the question is, what do we need in the digital world of tomorrow in order to be a successful leader, to make sure that my employees are successful? And here we have my 3 theses for a mind shift. One mind shift for sure will have to take place at leadership level. We are shapen by the shareholder value concept from the 80s. It is still around. Every management person is driven by return, profit, shareholder value, stock prices. Those are the topics that were influencing and shaping management throughout the past 20 to 30 years, and by that shaping all companies. Every listed company is driven by their quarterly figures, and this trickles down through the entire company. Everybody is working for the next financial report, for the next results for the next quarter. And now we have the concept stakeholder value, which is a completely new concept, and I think it's great. We just had a recent publication by more than 100 CEOs, mostly US CEOs, and they were strongly advocating the idea of stakeholder value. They said we need to move away from the purely monetary assessment of a company. We need to assess everything, the suppliers, the employees, the products. And for them, we need to create values. It's not only about the money that you get at the end of a month. And this requires a shift of paradigm in management. You need different KPIs, goals. Second aspect, we see that companies are usually hierarchically structured and everything is based on power. Those persons who have been around the longest, who have the strongest elbows, the strongest or the broadest chest, they're at the top. And they are pointing into the direction the company has to move. Those are mechanisms that do not work in a VUCA world anymore. We can see that in startups, in disruptive companies. They're developing so fast that they're just taking over established companies, and they're achieving a valuation at the stock market which are just astronomical. I mean, let's just look at Apple, where we have a company which is valuated as $1 trillion. So this is just basically unimaginable. And we do not say startups anymore, we just say young companies, so agile companies that are very dynamic. And I was just told by some colleagues here that they visited a customer last week and they asked them, okay, how quickly can you implement this? And they said, well, okay, by next week. And then the customer said, well, okay, then next week you have a presentation or a paper with the important keywords. And they said, no, we will be able to implement the system. We're going to show you how it works. And they basically didn't believe it. So here you have a huge corporate cultural clash. You have companies that organize and distribute responsibility in a completely different way. So it's not focused on power. So we have to adjust to that. We have to redistribute responsibility in a completely different way. And this is a task for management. And what I think is most important, and the topic that is dearest to me really, is the idea of purpose. Being a leader is, in essence, focused on providing purpose for all my employees. My company and everybody in my company has to have the feeling that they're valued, that they're responsible for something, that they're serving a purpose, not only for the company, but for society as a whole. then we can be successful. Just giving instructions doesn't work anymore today. You will not get any qualified employees for your company. They'd rather move to the next startup. The second part of the mind shift, so the second out of three, is our way of working. How do we work today? We have a very linear way of working. That is what we're familiar with, the traditional waterfall model. I learned that at university, and I try to rid myself of this idea as best I can. But we have this linear way of thinking. And if I look at our guests from the Asian region, then things are completely different already over there. So it is a very Western-centric concept, this linearity. Even the Americans have a different approach to that. What do I mean by linearity? Well, the typical German engineer has an idea, then he makes a concept, he drafts, he develops a prototype, he develops this prototype further, and then he has a product that will be tested hundreds, thousands of times, and then it will be introduced into the market. This just takes too much time. This doesn't work anymore today. You have all these agile mechanisms in the software industry. It is already quite normal to do it completely different. But this agility does not translate to other engineering services. It still takes so much time, and I'm from the automotive industry, and I've been working with BMW for years, so I know what I'm talking about, at least a little bit, if I'm talking about German engineering. Why do we not manage agility in these industries? Why do we not launch products to the market that are not 110% perfect, but products that are 80% perfect, but they're earlier available to the customer, and we develop them together, we improve them together. And of course, there are safety aspects that need to be taken into account. You cannot launch a car to the market that has no brakes and just tell the customer, well, just give it a go. However, I still believe we have a huge potential in changing our way of working, and we need to go there because other companies, other societies, they have moved on. They're way more agile than we are. And now we're moving on to a very exciting aspect, and this is strongly related to blockchain. We already heard a lot about this topic today. From a lot of you, I know you're not only thinking about cryptocurrency when it comes to blockchain, but about more societal aspects as well. Usually, if we talk about blockchain, we very often discuss only Bitcoin and the value of Bitcoin and potential risks connected to Bitcoins. However, the way of working in companies are shaped by cost synergies that you can harness because you're working within one organism, which means you have very little transaction costs. Because, for example, my colleague Professor Heckmann has the same business card than I have. So we trust each other, we have the same contract, working for the same company, and then transactions are quite easy. To do transactions with somebody that I do not know, a colleague in Indonesia, for example, is a little bit more difficult. You need to build trust, you need to go for lunch, you need to draft contracts, and it just takes too long. It doesn't work in nowadays environment anymore. So, and the great hope here is that with blockchain technology and smart contracts, we have the opportunity to work in smaller teams, to break up corporate structures. Maybe I do not need a company such as BMW anymore in the future. Maybe it just breaks open and I just build small engineering teams, small manufacturing teams, procurement teams, and they're connected via blockchain and smart contracts. And they connect quite spontaneously, working on one task for a week, a couple of months, and then they connect with somebody else for the next task. I myself am quite curious if this will be the development that we will be able to observe in the future with smart contracts. But I already see some developments going in that direction. I see small and little agile teams working together and many opportunities to use smart contracts in order to promote this way of cooperation, this way of working. And if we continue in this direction, then we will have a fundamental change in society, because this will fundamentally change leadership, cooperation, what kind of employees we need, a mind shift also within management and our employees. And this brings me to my last part, people. What I've just said, people also have to change. Employees have to change. What is the status quo today? There are a lot of young employees coming from university, and they have a strong focus on technology. So you have engineers, physicists, and they have a great education. They're great engineers. And I myself am also an engineer and a physicist. So allow me to weigh in on that. I think our focus is too strong on technology. It's too rigid of a focus. We need to broaden our mindset. We need to focus on working in multifunctional teams. We need to have an interdisciplinary approach. We already made some progress here, but we need to do more. We need to go across or beyond, rather, existing dimensions and categories. We need to completely shift our perspective, focus on the customer, the consumer. We need to try to find out what does the consumer, what does the customer want, and what will they want in 2 or 3 years. Not what I believe what they will want, but we need to ask them. We offer so many products and services that we develop based on our convictions and beliefs. Well, I am the expert, so I am going to develop something, and I think it's great because it discussed it with so many experts. However, I never talk to the actual customer, or at least not to that extent, which would be possible today. I mean, we have all this media available. We get all this customer feedback via so many channels, and we should use that more. We should tap into this potential, and this will also be a huge added value for our staff, for our employees. And this is closely linked to self-responsibility, to assume responsibility. A lot of my colleagues are too shy to speak up against authority. They need to consider more what they think could be done. Why do we have so many startups? Well, because we have young people who are not willing to take it anymore. They're just knocking on the door of established structures and say, I want to go there. I want to do this because I have a belief. I am convinced something can work. I am assuming responsibility. I'm not waiting to get a marching order and I'm just going to execute that. And this is something we need to demand from our employees, from our colleagues, from our children, because it's about development. It's about educating our future generation. They need to be successful in a VUCA world. This is the direction we need to embark on. I have a couple of 2 seconds left, so I'm just going to speed up things here. And very often we are focused on the monopoly of knowledge. Those who know the most, they are steering. They are setting the course. We trust that they know what is right. However, this leads to centralization, to one node, to bottlenecks. And this doesn't work anymore. So we need to break that up. We need to move towards cooperation, an open mindset. We need to become more agile, enter into cooperation, and then end this cooperation. Cooperation is not for infinity. And those are mind shifts that I would like to present you with as an inspiration. Here you get another overview. So I have minus 50 seconds left. So what remains to say, thank you very much for your attention, and I would really like to recommend the talk by Professor Heckman. He will focus on the societal dimension of what I've just said. Thank you very much.